I also have a little bit of a warm-up activity. So I'm going to place it on the screen.
Interesting. What kind of responses do you get?
I'll let you know in just a bit.
Okay. I can't wait to see this. So that is kind of a good icebreaker question. How many of you would go to Mars if you were able to? Those kind of things that don't really have a right or wrong answer are great ways to get your audience comfortable.
All right, thanks. So up on the screen is my warm-up slide for this program. It was actually kind of fun that Mark was talking about warm-up questions ahead of this. If you haven't already, I'm placing in the chat my Mentimeter link, and you can go ahead and just answer. There's 3 slides that you're going to go through and just answer, some of your ideas or questions. And we're also making a poll of where we're going to go explore today. So I'll just give a couple a minute for that.
Jackie, is this the kind of thing people are doing with their cell phones when they come in, or with
their cell phones on their device? Maybe a teacher has this actually up on their screen. So today I'm actually going to be talking about an interactive student live stream program. So this is not in the dome itself. This is all virtual. And in the fall, we were tasked to create a program. And so we came up with a program called Solar System Exploration. And at the time, I was our education specialist for our distance learning program here at the California Academy of Sciences. I have now transitioned into the assistant manager position at the Morrison Planetarium, but I got the opportunity to collaborate with Mary Holt and Josh Roberts on this project. So I was more on the education philosophy side. Mary and Josh was on the planetarium side, but I actually hold both hats because I actually went to school with Josh. So it's been fun to explore that. So the Morrison Planetarium and the student education team here at the California Academy of Sciences is a great collaboration because our student education team had actually been delivering virtual programs since 2015. So pre-pandemic, were already doing this. So we had a lot of tools already in our tool belt. And we actually had worked previously on updating our school shows together, where student education brought in the next generation science standards and some of those educational philosophies. And the planetarium was able to let us know what visuals they could do and what seemed like a good storyline. So we had already worked together really well on other projects. And we actually, in the planetarium, had done virtual astronomy programs since 2017 using different planetarium softwares as well as different interactivities. Most of those had been where we actually saw students or we had the opportunity to have a chat box. So we did get to interact a little bit. But with the pandemic, we saw that there was a shift happening and we got a lot more demand for our programming. And instead of just limiting it to just a few classes that can join us either in our webinar room or just in our single room where everybody had their cameras on, we decided to kind of go to the live streaming side of things. And so with that, we converted 4 of our planetarium shows into virtual shows. And one of those shows actually converted into a live stream science unit. So you may be wondering to yourself, what is an interactive live stream series? Because interactivity and live stream doesn't seem like they should go together. Well, for us, this is how we defined it. It consisted of 3 lessons in 1 month. Each of those lessons were 30 minutes long and was presented by a team. For example, it was actually Josh and I, and we were streaming to YouTube. So we couldn't see students, we couldn't hear students, And we actually turned off the chat box on YouTube due to already having previous experiences of students are kind of mean on chat boxes when they have no observation. So we turned that off. So we realized we also didn't have a chat box. So how do you do a program and make it interactive? Well, that's what I'm here to talk to you about. Yeah. So before we go into the actual interactivity, I wanted to let you know how did we come up with the fact that we wanted a series? And to do that, the student education team got together a bunch of teachers in the Bay Area and beyond to talk to them about what they needed. How did the spring go when the pandemic hit and everybody was in shelter in place? What were your challenges? What were some of your successes? And one thing that came out was they had very limited time to actually teach science. And so if they could have an opportunity to have kind of a unit that we could bring to them, that would really help. So we kind of brainstormed and figured out this 3-part streaming program. And we specifically used Zoom to YouTube, or we also used StreamYard to YouTube. And the differences between those two depended on if we were actually having some students inside the Zoom room or not. So instead of just explaining all of what we actually did, I want to go through with you and demo the actual program itself. So I'm going to go ahead and put on my teacher hat. You all get to decide if you are going to be a 3rd grader, 4th grader, or 5th grader. So think to yourself, which one do you want to be? And I will start our program momentarily. And remember, you have no way of communicating with me, either via chat or your microphone. All right, welcome everybody. I'm very excited for you all to be joining me today for our 2nd session for solar system exploration. Now, if you haven't gotten a chance already, go ahead and grab that pencil and that paper. Go ahead and write down some of your ideas of what makes Earth a good place to live. And you can also fill out that Mentimeter link to let us know a little bit more about some of your ideas, where you might want to travel today. All right, well, I think it's about ready for us to start. So welcome back, everybody. Remember, I'm coming live from the California Academy of Sciences in San Francisco, California. And let's go ahead and just recap what we did last time. So last week, we got a chance to explore our daytime sky and our nighttime sky. We got a chance to actually look a little bit closer into one of those objects, and we got to look a little bit closer at the moon. Now, you all did some great observations of your moon journals. I got to see a lot of that information in our Padlet. Also, you asked some really good questions about the moon. So I'm going to go ahead and take a moment and let's answer some of those questions that you all had. So our very first question is, since the moon is moving away from Earth, how will the Earth be impacted? Well, we can think about this. With the Earth moving away, our tides might change, maybe also our length of day. These are all things that affect our planet with the moon going around it. So these are some of the ideas that we can explore a little bit more if you want to do a research project, or you can explore a little bit more on your own. All right, our next question is there Earth or moonquakes on the moon? Well, it turns out there is. So there are moonquakes, but they're a little bit different than the ones here on planet Earth. If you think of the Earth, a lot of it has liquid on the surface, and we have that molten core, or not core, but we have that molten layer around us. And so because of that, as the waves go through, it vibrates differently than the moon that's really solid. And so the waves are going to go through the moon, but it's just going to feel a little bit different. So if you're ever on the moon, go ahead, you might feel a moonquake. And my last question is that if someone is standing at the bottom of the moon, would that person fall off or fly off in space? Or would that person just be standing up, stay upside down? Well, let's think about this. If I'm in Antarctica, would I be standing upside down or right side up? Well, it turns out there's not really a right side up or upside down in space. So it would feel like I was standing upright. But when we look at our planet as a globe, we usually have Antarctica at the bottom. But what if we flip it? What if Antarctica is at the top? There's no up, right, or down in space. So it's all due to how we are looking in at things. So it's from our perspective, which is kind of neat. All right. Well, we have gotten a chance to explore and go a little bit deeper into some of the things that we wanted to explore today. But let's go ahead and start thinking about planets, because today we are packing for a planet. Now, before we do, let's go ahead and remember our sky. And we can look at our daytime sky almost as the sun is setting. And remember, we're using a planetarium software called Stellarium that you can download at home yourself and look at the sky, which is pretty neat. Now, if we're looking around, we just see our sun. But let's go ahead and move time forward so that the sun does set and we can start to see some of the stars. Don't want that one, but we can move time forward an hour. Well, there we go. That's about 8:30 this evening. Let's see some of the things that are in the sky. You see some pretty bright stars like we saw last time. We remember that last time we explored that the stars appear to move across the night sky as time goes on, and they rise in the east and set in the west. But there's more than just stars in our sky. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on labels for our planets. Can anybody point on their screen to where you see a planet? I've labeled them. You might recognize a name. What if I move to start to see the south? See any more planets? All right, so yeah, I see 3 planets in our sky. We're at 8:30 at night. I see Venus right here, just about to set. And I see Saturn and Jupiter. Now, if we just looked at the night sky, these objects, these planets would appear that it's moving in the same way that the stars are moving. But do they actually move differently? Are they in the same spot all the time, every single day? Well, let's figure that out. And I can use a really cool tool in this planetarium software where I can see the path of some of these planets. So let's go ahead and we'll do all the planets that we can see right now. And I'm going to actually changed my date to about a year from now and see how much Jupiter and Saturn move in the night sky. Went too far. All right. In 1 year, let's see what it looks like. Is that what you expected? Well, as a reminder, this is Venus. It kind of goes this way and then kind of does this back loop and then back here. Also noticing that Saturn does that too. That's kind of curious. Well, to do this, we need to go into space. And so before we travel out into space, I want to take a moment to remind ourselves where the planets are in space and kind of the order they are in. And to do that, we're going to do a little activity where I'm going to have everybody go ahead and stand up. Go ahead and stand up. All right. So we are going to pretend like our body is the solar system. And we're going to figure out how far different planets are from each other in what I call the scale of the solar system as our body. So we can imagine we're going to put the sun on top of our head. So go ahead and put the sun at the top of your head. Now, way out in the outer parts of our solar system is a dwarf planet, Pluto. So we're going to place Pluto at our toes. Go ahead and place Pluto at your toes. All right. Now, our furthest planet in our solar system is Neptune. If the sun was on your head and Pluto was at your toes, where do you think Neptune would be on your body? Go ahead and make a prediction. Point on your body, where do you think Neptune would be? All right. Well, Neptune would actually be right at our knees. Okay, we have Uranus. Where do you think Uranus would be? If Pluto was at our toes, the sun's on our head, Neptune is at our knees. All right, yeah, kind of at our hips. And then Saturn, go ahead and make your prediction. I like to say Saturn's kind of like right here at my heart. Jupiter. About at our shoulders. Then we have our asteroid belt, kind of our neck. And then our inner planets, our rocky planets, would all be in our head. So we could think Mercury kind of at our forehead, Venus at our eyes, Earth, nose, and Mars at our mouth. Now, as a reminder, I know it looks like they're all close together. The distance between Earth and Mars is 43 million miles away. So we like to say there's a lot of space in space. All right, go ahead and sit back down, everybody. Thank you so much for doing that activity. Now, we said that we are going to pack for a planet, and I asked you all for your activity after last session to tell me what you would pack for a planet. And here are some of the answers that we got. So we heard that Noah wanted to go to Europa, a moon of Jupiter, and they would pack a temperature controlled suit with oxygen, a tent with a comfy mattress and blankets, endless trail mix and Cheerios. That sounds yummy. And we also have Ego magazines and a telescope to see into space and back to Earth. That'd be kind of neat to be able to see back home. All right, well, let's go ahead and think of and look at a couple of planets. And to do that, I am going to go ahead and look at where you all voted to go, you all said what made Earth a good place. Thank you very much for sharing that. But let's go ahead and see. Looks like everybody wanted to go to Mars first. So we are going to go ahead and travel to Mars. All right. I'm going to go ahead and take out my teacher hat. We would continue on our journey to Mars and actually look at what makes Mars a place that we might want to visit. Also talk about some of the different experiences we might have at Mars and what we would need to bring with us to survive on Mars, which is kind of neat as well. And then we would definitely probably hit Saturn. And then if we had time, we might be able to travel to a third planet, but most of the time we did not. So that was a really small snippet of the program itself. So I'm gonna have you all take, we're gonna go into breakout rooms in just a second. And to do that, I am gonna have you all think about when you were in that session, what types of interactions did you experience in that demo of the program? And you're going to have about 5 minutes to just talk with your fellow planetarians about what type of experience did you, what type of interactions did you experience in that live stream? And then if you need a little bit more time or need something else to talk about how did it feel doing those interactions? All right.
Gotta say that is one creepy looking alligator.
This is Claude.
That is a sweet boy.
He is a very sweet boy.
Well, that's good.
He literally lays on his rock and does nothing.
But his eye looks a little odd.
Mm-hmm.
He's albino.
He's awesome. I met him at LIPS 2015. Well, I didn't meet him, but I saw him.
Yeah.
He is. He's so cuddly. We love him. He's one of our.
I spent most of my adult life in Florida, and the gators don't usually come that color.
Yes. All right. So I just want to take a moment and for the rest of the presentation, I would love for you to just kind of jump in, ask any questions, and make this kind of a conversation. I'm also inviting Mary to jump in since she was a collaborator on this project as well. Both her and I worked on the curriculum, and then Josh and I worked and delivered the program itself. But first, what were some of the things that you discussed in your breakout room? What were some of the types of interactions that you experienced in that demo?
Pointing at the planets.
Pointing at the planet, so you actually physically pointed at the screen?
Yeah, actually, that was a big part for us. We talked a lot about the scale model of the solar system using the body, but just the physicality, especially in a virtual program, having the instructor tell you to stand up and do something is not what you're expecting. You're expecting to just sit and stare at your computer screen for a while. So all of a sudden, you experience that shock of being like, oh, now I have to actually do something, and you're going to remember it a little bit more.
Yeah.
In our breakout room, Shira brought up that there's another way to do the kinesthetic thing with the scale model using your arm, your outstretched arms.
Ooh.
And I like that a lot better because it avoids the whole Uranus controversy.
Yeah, that's why I like that this is done in a live stream version. I don't actually hear that. And that's why I say the hips. But yes, it is unfortunate that Uranus is very opposed to that.
All right, Michael.
Yeah, Michael, I definitely, sometimes I lean into it, depends on my mood. Other times I don't. What other interactivities did you experience?
The pencil and paper at the beginning.
Yeah, I had you getting a piece of paper, actually writing down some of your ideas already.
You asked us to make a prediction about the movement of the planets.
So are making some predictions ahead of time, not just listening to me spew out facts. And
we commented, Jackie, about how well you handled silence during your presentation, giving us time to think and it not seeming awkward. It was really very good.
Thanks. That's years of practice. I've been doing this since 2015, so lots
Yeah.
and lots of practice.
Yeah, I mentioned Jackie. I was like, that's one of the biggest valuable things I learned from your team you were on before is like, no, actually count out 10 seconds, wait.
We were wondering if you have any feedback at all. Do you see anything that's going on with the class, or you're just out into the void?
I am out into the void. The only actual real-time interaction that I have with you all is through that Mentimeter link. I made it a little bit condensed, so I actually would have gone to see why you all think Earth is a good planet to explore. I would have actually looked at that kind of word cloud, and we would have talked a little bit more about that. I also would have gone back to that word cloud at the end about, what would you take with you, and see what were some of the ideas there, and the really cool thing about the word cloud, and I'll do that in a sec. Let's, for example, see this one, is that the more people type in a certain word, the bigger it gets. So we can see that a lot of people want food, water, oxygen and air, a spacesuit. So we get a lot of information that way. Jenny.
When you were developing the program, did you do it with a live audience where you could see them, just to get a feeling for the likely reactions you're going to get?
Yes and no. So that kind of gets into how we actually created this unit. So I'm going to take a moment and go through that with you all. And so creating this unit, we did a couple of things. We first looked at the next generation science standards to see 3rd through 5th, what were the actual standards, what could we actually do in a 3-part series. Then we actually looked at our lessons and activities we already created, because why reinvent the wheel? And so we took a lot of the stuff that we already knew worked well, such as our first program of the unit was looking at the night sky and the daytime sky. We literally pulled that from the planetarium school show and just did it. The activity for the solar system as your body, we use in a different program. But I've done that with kids in front of me, so I know how long it takes to make that prediction and stuff like that. And we added some new stuff, but the 3rd session was actually based off of another virtual program we already created. So we kind of did a big mush and figure out how that worked. But the main thing about connecting those sessions and doing that big mush is we wanted to create a storyline throughout the whole unit. So that was really important for us, that each session connected to and created a kind of a overarching storyline of, we're going to explore our night sky, then we're going to actually go out into space and think about what we would need to explore, these bigger things. And then the last session was actually to look at the smaller objects in our solar system. So we had a nice arching pathway for students. The other thing that we did was created activities before the sessions, in between sessions, and after the sessions. So one thing that we realized is we needed to have a one-stop shop for teachers. So we created a Google site that teachers could go to, and it had all the information that they needed. So I think, Carrie, you can go ahead and place this in the chat box, the link to it. But the very first page gave an overview of the program, what the sessions we're going to cover. We had our registration right here. We talked about what actually a live stream interactive was. We placed what NGSS standards we were connecting. We also made it so that we were connecting to English language arts So we did a couple of things there, and then also some technology information. But what was really helpful for teachers was we had this student tab. And this is why we specifically chose Google Sites and not our own website, is because you could have it all on just one URL. Is we had, what do you need to get ready for the program? And then all the activities that you could do. So before the series even started, we had options of different activities you could do. Something to actually prepare for the program was creating a Earth model that we used to do another actual kinesthetic activity. We created creative writing, and that's where the English language arts came in. We also asked them to do moon observations. And then after that, so after every live stream, we had options of activities as well. And we even showed them where to go for Stellarium to be able to explore the night sky themselves. We also grabbed some activities that we already had created on our website. And then we also pulled from NASA, JPL activities. So we pointed them towards resources that we knew we didn't personally have, but were already out there. And so that was a great resource to be able to do. So we made sure that it was kind of like a one-stop shop. Teachers were really overwhelmed, and we heard from them over and over again that we needed a space that they could find everything, including all the recordings of the programs. So we marketed this as a live stream that you can join, but as we all know with time zones, not everybody can make that time and date. Things also come up. You have different schedules, bell schedules. Some people go to recess at a different time or lunch at a different time. So instead of just saying, oh, if you only join, you can only join live, and then you're out of luck, we recorded the programs. And so teachers were able to go back and watch this together as a class, make it an assignment, and actually have the students watch it on their own. And so we have the links, the Mentimeter links here, as well as the recordings, all 3 recordings. And then at the end, I mushed together all our Q&As so that there's one big Q&A video as well. So that was really helpful for our teachers to explore. And then another thing that you may have noticed was that I referenced, and we also showed a lot of the student work. And that was important to us, that because this is a live stream, we wanted to make sure that they were able to see that their work, that they were a part of this unit, that they weren't just bystanders and just watching a live stream or just watching a video. They were part of it. So that was something important for us. And like I said, we have those recordings. We can actually see Josh and I, and this, we were actually using live StreamYard for this one, specifically because of, at the time we hadn't discovered OBS yet, and the frame rate for Zoom was so low that some of the planetarium software just looked really choppy, and we didn't want that. So StreamYard was our way to just go straight to YouTube for this one. We did do that student work. We had the recordings, but also we asked for feedback after every single program. So in between sessions, we had students fill out just a quick survey of what questions do you have about the sky or the museum? What was the best thing today, and what could make this program better? And both Josh and I went through after every session, read the feedback, saw, okay, where can we improve? Where can we be able to get maybe more interactivity? What is working well? What are our students thinking about? And, you know, some of these we could definitely try. Some of these we definitely couldn't. So we took the feedback and we adjusted it really, which was a lot of fun. But I want to go back to the type of interactions that you actually experienced today in our demos. So there was a couple of interactions that we really wanted to make sure that were in every single program. One was that kinesthetic activity. So I actually had you physically get up and move your body, because I'm sure all of you have seen many Zoom meetings where you're just sitting there and you're dozing off or you're distracted. You need that kind of wiggle break. But that was important for us as adults, but it's really important for students. So we definitely brought that in. As you saw also, we had Mentimeter. So this was an application that we found over the summer, and it's a great application to get real-time information from your audience if you can't have that chat box. And it is anonymous, which is even better. So that way we do have, we don't see who's saying what, which is actually a big hurdle for students. Is one of the hurdles of having their ideas shared out in the chat is because their name is associated with that idea. And then also it had a bad word filter, which was great. So it helped us with any inappropriate comments that might have gone in that we saw on our one time we opened up the chat box on YouTube. Then one of the other things that we did was we had a Padlet. And this was a really cool discovery as well, that allowed us to explore and have students share their work. So Padlet is where you can just put a lot of fun things on there. So you might see, and again, this can be anonymous, and it also does have a profanity filter. But we can see some of our students shared with us what they would pack for their planet. Not everybody had Google, so we didn't want like a spot, like a Google site or anything like that. We wanted something that a lot of students could be able to access easily. And this is the one application that we found that wasn't blocked by a lot of firewalls for schools. So yeah, one of our creative writing assignments was to create a constellation yourself based out of a grouping of stars in the night sky. And it was a lot of fun to be able to read these. You can actually look this up and read them for yourself later on. It's a really cool place to just look at student work and get that feedback as well of, are those activities actually working or not? All right. So my last interaction or type of interaction was actually answering those student questions. That was important as well. That was something that we found out after the first round was students loved having their questions answered live. And so that was something that we actually shifted a little bit and made more time to be able to answer multiple student questions. And that was one way we were able to change dynamically in between programs based off of the feedback that we saw. Any questions?
You were doing these before the pandemic, and I was just wondering if you had, any side-by-side goals of doing these virtual programs with the idea that these students would also come to the planetarium, or was it just a replacement for that experience?
It was just for a replacement of that experience. At the time, we definitely didn't have any opportunity. We didn't see at any time in the future that students would actually come into the academy. However, it has been talked about of doing like a pre-activity like this and then coming into the planetarium and doing one of our school shows or one of our public shows. It's definitely an opportunity to do a pre-activity or a post-activity too.
And Jackie, generally distance learning is for schools that are really far away, right? So they wouldn't be coming to the academy generally.
Correct. The mission of the distance learning program was to reach students who don't have the opportunity to go to a science museum, rather than serving our community who's really close by, and especially San Francisco schools, they actually get into the academy for free via an endowment. But of course, the pandemic hit and everybody didn't have the opportunity to come into the museum. So we wanted to make sure that we could bring the museum to them. And that was something else we saw in the listening session with teachers, is that students really wanted to see their favorite things here at the academy. They wanted to see Claude, the albino alligator. They wanted to see a planetarium show. So we wanted to make sure that we could bring that experience, but in a way that it was flat, a flat dome. And Jeff, this program specifically is not funded by the city. It's actually funded by a donation. We get a little bit of city funding, but most of it is from private donations. Oh, good question, Jenny. How is it different if it's a class versus an individual student at home? With the live stream version, I don't see much of a difference. You might just, if you have more individual kids in your group, you're going to just get more information. You're going to have individuals actually giving you a lot more, where if you have just a bunch of classes, usually it's the teacher who is on the Mentimeter or filling out that information. So it goes through a filter. So that might be one way you get more of the kid answers than a teacher filtered answer.
Yeah, and one of the other online programs we did while we were closed that I did was with like a couple of different classes, and that they were in their classrooms already, but I was like online at home, and I had a partner from the education department on the live stream with me so they could help me like communicate with the teacher and everything. So that was super, super valuable when there is like a big class and like the teacher might be kind of distracted and stuff, to have a couple of different people that are able to do the program together.
Yeah, and Jenny, with a follow-up of do I need to leave more time for teachers to gather those answers? Yes, absolutely. So I specifically knew you all were going to be individuals answering, so I didn't give you as much time. I also knew you were adults. If I actually had some students in front of me, I probably would have gotten a lot more time. Also, something I do with wait time is if it's feeling like a little bit long, but I still want to give some more time, I'll also say, and if you finished up, that's okay, but maybe think about this and give them another thought to think about, is a really great way to still have students engage and not kind of check out while you're giving some space for other students to have that wait time. Great question, Amy, about what was the most number of participants we had? Well, to look at that, I do have a total for this program, and this is based off of registration, not actually finding who connected with us. Due to it's YouTube, I can't actually backtrack those view numbers, whether it's an individual class or if it was an individual student. So based off of our registrations, for this program specifically, we saw about, I think it's 1,800 students. So you can see we got a lot of them from California. Illinois was the second highest state that we had students from. And we actually did have a couple of students outside of the US. I'm not quite remembering where they were from off the top of my head. I think this program was India. So Andy asked if you had to choose one grade. So we chose, actually we chose a grade band. So we did this specifically, anybody who was 3rd through 5th was invited to this program, or we actually said this is most suited for 3rd through 5th. If there was a 2nd grade class that wanted to join us, we would welcome them, and it was totally fine by us. We do specifically have a philosophy of no more than 3 grade bands for a program. And usually we'll indicate also on our site that the actual standards that we were trying to hit, and usually teachers will see that, oh, this is more geared towards the 5th grade standards, or this might be geared towards maybe 2nd grade standards, depending on the program itself. So we're trying to teach kind of a range. So that's why we do have opportunities, and I try to change my language a little bit and vocabulary to start off maybe with a simpler vocabulary and then introduce that scientific word as well. Oh, and one note is that this program was completely free. So all teachers had to do was actually sign up via a Google form, just so we had their information so we can contact them. Also, we wanted to have these stats because we do have some donors that we have to report back to. And so a lot of this was based off of those that registration, but it was completely free. Yes, humor, it does help in education. I think, yes, Jeff, any situations, right? But I think it's nice for students to be, or I think it's good that students see that you don't have to be this serious stoic person. And if you look, because it was actually Josh and I who were co-presenting together. He was doing most of it, but I was also there. We have some banter going on between us back and forth. So we brought a lot of humor in there. And Josh has always been known to bring humor into his presentation style. Well, as you saw, that website is our one-stop shop to be able to find all of the things for our teachers, but you're more than welcome to look at those as well, see all the activities that we created, as well as actually see the recordings of the programs. I did mention earlier that all of our distance learning programs are on YouTube, but they are unlisted. So if you're ever curious about some of our other distance learning programs, some of the things that Mary has been doing as well, you can go to calacademy.org/distance learning, and there you can find a lot of our recordings of programs. Thanks, everybody.